Sam Hartman and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish are not out of the college football playoff race whatsoever, but there's an awful lot that they got to clean up. Man, this was a gutsy effort going on the road to Durham against a really well coached football team, a team that actually really surprised me with how physical they were able to play. Duke, if there was one takeaway from the weekend, is that Duke will go toe to toe, man. They are not scared. They will go toe to toe and they will battle, and their coaches will make adjustments. And next thing you know, you're going to fast forward, and all of a sudden it doesn't feel like at any point you were outplayed in the game, but you're actually trailing. And that's kind of how it felt this past weekend. Now, they were on the heels of a season-defining drive last week, and they came up short because Ohio State was able to punch it in at game's end. Well, now they have their own opportunity to have a season-defining drive, and they answer the bell. 10 plays, 95 yards, 2-point conversion, 31 seconds remaining in the ball game. It was clinic, man. It was a great, great job there at the end, but there's some things they really need to clean up if they're going to contend at the top of college football. One, they got to get healthy at wide receiver. Absolutely have to get healthy at wide receiver. Jaden Thomas, of course, he's the go-to guy at wide receiver. He's got to get healthy. He's had a hamstring. Jaden Greathouse, he's unavailable. You have lost Matt Salerno the last couple of weeks with a leg injury. They got to get healthy at wide receiver if this team's going to really take the next step and start knocking off some of the really good teams they have on their schedule down the stretch. They got to clean up penalties. That goes without saying, man. Notre Dame, they had 6 pre-snap penalties offensively and 3 offsides on defense. Look, Duke has done a great job of making that place feel a little bit more hostile. They've done a great job of that. But Notre Dame can never be a penalized team. They're just not crazy explosive. So if they're behind the sticks, if they're in a position where they are in 1st and 15s, 2nd and longs because of pre-snap infractions, they're going to have a difficult time overcoming those. In the last 4 games, they've committed 34 penalties. 34, including 10 at NC State, 8 against Central Michigan, and 12 against Duke. I mean, Notre Dame's a well-coached outfit. They're really good. They are a really good football team, but they cannot be their own worst enemy. They got to get this thing adjusted and get this thing adjusted quickly, because if they're playing behind the sticks and off schedule, it's going to be hard for them to sustain. What's going on with the run game is the next question. Now, the final stats will kind of show off an effort that's probably a little better than it actually was. 5.5 yards with the sack adjusted rushing rate. But when you look and you dive just a little bit further, I mean, you had the Sam Hartman scramble, which was awesome, I might add. You have the fake punt that was a 34-yard gain that goes down as a run. So you take those 2 out. Now you have a 3.82, sack adjusted rushing effort. And then prior to Estime's big run to put the game on ice, they were at 2.63 rushing yards per carry. That's just not good enough. I mean, the strength of this team, supposedly, is supposed to be the offensive line. And your bread and butter is running the football and running the football downhill. And yet they couldn't do it. Now, credit to Duke. They did a great job being stout and steady in the front. But that's just not going to be good enough. I referenced the scramble, man. Hartman, what an understanding. I mean, 4th and 16, people will be talking about that scramble. If they go on to do what they want to do, then they'll be talking about that scramble forever in South Bend, Indiana. Other things of significance for Notre Dame at the moment. Mitchell Evans, is this guy becoming a star before our eyes? Just out of sheer curiosity, because we had talked all off season, man, how do you replace Michael Mayer? How do you replace Michael Mayer? Right? I know that when you take into account who won the Mackey Award last year and whatever, like Brock Bowers is incredible, no doubt about it. Michael Mayer was at worst, the second best tight end in college football. At worst. Well, now Mitchell Evans is becoming a real difference maker. He accounted for 60% of the passing yardage. 60% by a tight end. Now, I know they're depleted at receiver, but when you think about it, you got 28-yard seam route. You have a 3rd and 8 conversion that he had 9 yards, had a 21-yarder on 3rd down, had a 36-yard catch and run, another 19-yarder on 3rd down on the game-winning drive. I mean, this guy's becoming a real valuable asset for Sam Hartman. If he can continue to develop, and then you have 2 tight ends between him and Holden Stays, you got a real thing going for their tight end position. But the receivers continue to be a question mark for me. You had a big drop in the red zone by Rico Flores. You had the red zone drop by Tobias Merriweather. I think they're going to have to figure some things out offensively, because the last 2 weeks against both Duke and against Ohio State, 35 points offensively in 8 quarters, just not going to be good enough. So Jared Parker's going to have to adapt and adjust. He's the offensive coordinator, and find a way to create some more big play potential down the road.